Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. I'm Gary Pollan from the right.
And I'm David Jones from the left. Thank you for coming.
This week we have an interesting discussion, David, with three great guests talking about social media and politics. Social media these days is very important to everybody's life. In fact, we couldn't do many things without it, David.
I don't try.
We're going to learn from our guests because we always have a lot to learn. First, Vlad Davidyuk, who is the communications director for the Harris County Republican Party. Next, only woman on the panel, so you'll get the first question.
Yes.
Dr. Heather Evans, who's an associate professor at Sam Houston State University. And finally, Otis Elvagaru. He's the communications director for the Harris County Democratic Party. Now, why are you in that party?
Glad to be here. First of all, it's a great party. It's the left party to be in.
The left party.
The left
party to be in.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, when this is over, you and Vlad can get together and Vlad can tell you why you ought to be a Republican.
We'll see.
Maybe he can tell you how to be a Republican, too.
Maybe.
Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Okay, so you have been studying Twitter.
Yes,
and
I have.
You came up with 3 areas of civic engagement that you're using to conduct your analysis. One of them is called civic engagement with community problems, volunteering. The other one is electoral, which is voting and persuasion with the Twitter. And the other one is political voices, where people are urged to contact elected officials, media, and the like. How did you come up with those 3 categories, and which one of them in your most recent survey of Twitter usage is dominant?
That's a great question. So first, the usage of social media and the types of engagement came from an organization called CIRCLE, C-I-R-C-L-E. It stands for the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement at Tufts University. So they have this definition that actually includes all 3 of those areas, and I just split it out into these chunks to then study who's using this on social media, who's actually talking about voting, who's talking about getting people to turn out, who's talking about volunteering, who's asking respondents or people on Twitter to go and contact their elected officials. And what I'm seeing out of those 3 is that the voice part of this is one of the most active. So people are being asked on Twitter often to go contact someone. If they're unhappy, go contact. They're also being asked to register, especially before an election. You see politicians going on there saying, you know, here's where you need to go to get registered. Here's how you can do it if you need an absentee ballot and so forth. Here's how to vote. Now, there's some interesting correlations between the types of people talking about these things on Twitter and those who aren't. What my research is showing is that Democratic candidates are the ones talking about get registered, go vote, express your voice.
You also allude to the fact that they are more active on Twitter because their vote has been suppressed, so they need to be more active.
More active. A theory.
Very true.
That is a theory as to why they are spending a lot more time on make sure that you're registered when you go to vote, because some people have been turned away for registration problems. So make sure you do get registered. But it's really interesting in that party does spend a lot more time on that. The Republican Party, however, spends a lot more time on the campaigning side. So they spend a lot of time saying, you know, I'm going to this group, I'm going to be talking about this, come see me. Whereas the Democrats are saying,
and you're talking about candidates and
candidates for Congress.
Right.
And so my research actually examines all of the candidates who ran for the House in 2012, all of the candidates who ran for the House and the Senate in 2014, and then in 2016, everyone who ran for the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Oh my gosh.
So we have data
Please
on...
exclude from the conversation the presidential campaign.
Well, except David, to be fair, President Trump has used Twitter. You could argue it's good at times. You could argue it's bad at times.
Well, we can argue it's horrible all the time.
Yeah, I mean, he got elected president, so you would be wrong.
It's been very effective for the most part.
All right, Vlad, well, let's kind of get your perspective and broaden it a little with social media and politics. Is social media the new way to contact voters, and the old ways of radio, television, door-to-door, and mail are over?
It is ascendant, and the old ways we've had of doing things, yard signs, mailers, radio ads, those things are starting to decline slowly but surely. And what's happening is they're not fading off. What they're doing is they're becoming much more targeted to those specific audiences and those specific channels where they're much more effective. Instead of being scattershot, it's much more laser beam kind of focus. Social media, on the other hand, gives that wide array of possibilities. We're seeing that across every single platform that we use on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever the YouTube, whatever the platform is, we're engaging a wider audience, a more diverse audience, a wider array of people than what we used to see.
Notice, are you taking a different approach, given that you're kind of a minority party? You don't ever win anything anymore. I mean,
Oh, we win a lot. Trust me. 2018.
Oh well,
gonna be great.
Obama's at the top of the ticket. You do well.
No, but it's a similar approach, but we're more targeted. So we're more about quality instead of quantity. I think a lot of people are trying to be all over the place, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, whatever. Well, you need a targeted audience for that. So you can't be on everything at once. It's not going to be effective. So what we're looking at is we're looking more at Facebook. We're looking more at Twitter. We've just now started our Instagram page. And after the primary, we're looking more into our YouTube. So we can target more specific areas of people instead of just trying to be scattered everywhere.
Dr. Evans, how do we know when you use social media that people are really reading it? I mean, you can open up something, but it doesn't mean you watch it. It doesn't mean you read what's said there. You open it and say, I'm not interested in this. Is politics. I'm going to move on and read movie reviews. I mean, how do we know?
Right. If you tweet it, will they come, right?
Yes.
That's the big question. Well, what we're seeing on social media is that for candidates, they're bypassing the traditional media gatekeepers, right? They can go on Twitter and they can say what they're thinking right when they're thinking it. Trump. You can go on social media and instead of waiting to be interviewed on a program, you can just already put your positions out there. And so it's kind of like politicians are beginning these conversations without having to be invited on these programs. And then people start talking about that. So they're essentially leading the media. I think Twitter matters. I think Facebook matters. I think all of these things matter for leading our discussion. And that's what happened in 2016. And we do see there's some research that suggests if you see something on Twitter, you're more likely to act on it. So if you see a post that asks you to go and donate money to a campaign, you're more likely to do that than had you not seen such a post. So just seeing it does have an effect. And I think the scholarship is going in the direction to where now we're all interested in experiments. If I give you a Twitter stream and you see, let's say, a woman being very negative on Twitter and she's running for an office, does that turn you off to her as a candidate, or does it make you want to vote for her? And so I think the research is moving in the direction. We have yet to really say a tweet means you'll vote, but a tweet has meant you will donate. So.
Well, the other thing is that Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are real difficult to take individually outside of context. You have to look at how platforms compare one to another and how they work in tandem and in concert. What we've seen is when we post messaging on multiple platforms in either different formats or at different times of the day, those effects can be aggregated and they can actually build one on top of each other because people see the messages being reinforced. And so as platforms go, it's good to have that flexibility.
Otis, how do you know people are reading your stuff?
Well, I mean, Facebook, Twitter allows you to do that. There's certain third-party apps that allow you to see who's reading it, who's clicking, who's watching, right? The analytics of it all. So it allows you to see that, the reactions, the comments. Facebook and Twitter, they use a very complex algorithm. So one of the things that we found on Facebook was that if they're commenting on it, actually, it goes more to the top of a person's page, their feed on Facebook. Same thing with Twitter. The more likes you get, the more retweets you get, the more eyeballs you get, it gives you unique views. So we know. So you'll definitely know, and it's just something that you have to study, you have to tinker with it. As Vlad alluded to, cross-platforming is very important. So using not just Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but crossing them. So having a Facebook post on a tweet, having a tweet, taking a picture, we were able to do that a lot with this president's tweets, a lot. And it drives up our volunteer base, it drives up our donating base, so
that's the
it's
good
really
and the
important.
bad about the president's
Well, that's
tweeting.
a great for us.
Yeah, good for you, bad for Vlad.
Oh no, I mean,
The
President
has good
Trump
stuff,
tweeted
too.
yesterday his support for some really great candidates who are running statewide. Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and all of those candidates are benefiting from that positive attention.
Right, and so the Democratic Party, is benefiting from that attention too, because now we're getting we're getting drive up. So it's always great when a Republican president has to ask Republicans to vote in a Texas primary. When was the last time that happened?
I don't know why you had to endorse Abbott or Patrick. They're going to win.
Dr. Evans, I found this, and I want you to react to it. Americans are ready to believe the worst in this, the model of democracy. Polarization in politics and society has become so large that people believe the most appalling and transparent lies to bolster their beliefs. Is that what you're experiencing?
So I've not done research specifically on that, but I'll say that in political science research generally, we're finding that people are isolating themselves from the other point of view. So we get comfortable, we get around people that already believe like us, or on social media we start blocking people of different opinions than we do, and it leads to that. So because we are self-selecting ourselves into these circles, these enclaves, we don't ever really get to hear the other side. And if you're in that sphere where you're only hearing the one side, if someone starts saying negative things or untrue things, you may be more likely to believe them because it aligns with what it is you currently believe.
And social media does that. I mean, Twitter and Facebook, like I said, I alluded to the algorithm before. It does that. It feeds out the people that don't agree with you and puts more people in that agree with you. So social media plays into that. Going digital plays into that. These algorithms play into that. So it's not just, us that'll block them. Facebook will do it for you. Twitter will do it for you. Instagram will do it for you. So it's really fascinating to see how, like you said, the echo chambers are really being effective right now.
So the two questions would be, the first question to the group would be this. Is that a threat to our democracy? If you go back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you got exposed. You got both sides of the issue. You heard what one side had, you had the other. You'd listen, you'd agree, you'd disagree. Now we're in this world where you just get the stuff you want to see, and you don't get the other side. You don't believe the Democratic Party doesn't have any good ideas, do you?
No, they have a few good ideas.
And I'm sure you feel the same way. The Republican Party has some good ideas.
Oh, I don't feel that way.
Oh, you don't? You're long gone. Okay.
I am too far removed.
That's unfortunate.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, not to interrupt or anything, but there are issues now that are very issue based that are going on. When we talk about gun reform, we talk about issues like Black Lives Matter, a woman's right to choose. I mean, there is a very distinct difference in where the parties are now today. Look at the man that occupies the White House.
There used to
and
be
look at what he
pro-choice
says.
people and pro-life people in the Democratic Party, and now they're gone.
Right.
Now it's only pro-choice, not pro-life, no place. They're running the pro-life people out of the party. Pretty pathetic, if you ask me.
Part of this balkanization of that social media has helped create. One of the good positive effects of that is that people have turned more inwards and looked at a lower level in terms of how they get their news, how they get their information, and how they respond politically. What we've started to see is people are starting to focus a little bit more on their neighborhoods, on the precincts that they live in, on the individual districts. And so what's happening is they're becoming much more engaged on a lower, closer level because they understand the echo chamber, they understand the silo effect that it creates, that social media offers, but at the same time, they use the same tool to get in touch with their neighbors to be much more aware of what's going on locally. And that's a really good positive
Yeah, they're
development.
listening to Tip O'Neill now, 30 years later, right? All politics is local. And that's the message that
message has never changed. It's always been the same.
I think it's been
He made deals with Reagan, too, remember?
I think it's been changed quite a bit over the years, actually. I think a lot of people pay attention way too much to nationals. I mean, you're seeing the numbers now. In presidential years, more people come out to vote compared to when there's a midterm election. So now we're seeing an uptick now, especially now in 2018. You're seeing how well we're doing locally, the Democratic Party, in our early voting numbers. We are surpassed the presidential year. So people are now starting to resonate with the all politics is local because the most effective change is local. President doesn't care about you locally.
So in terms of polarization, Fiorina wrote a book called Culture War, and in it...
You didn't bring it to show?
I did not. I'm sorry. I should be plugging this, right?
should,
No.
yes.
I think you just did.
I
There you
did.
go.
In Culture
On Amazon.
War, the issues that are discussed are the ones that supposedly separate the parties distinctly in terms of social issues, right? Gay marriage, abortion, these sorts of larger issues. And what the book shows is that actually, while on a national level, it seems as though we are very, very polarized. Our choices are polarized, our options are polarized. When we have people on programs even like this, where we talk to pundits, we hear that they're very polarized, but that Americans really aren't. And so, getting back to this politics is local idea, perhaps we all think oh, we must all be polarized because
Right.
we see it on TV. But we're really not that polarized. But social media can affect how polarized we are because we do get in these little echo chambers.
I was going to ask you, Doctor, before, and I want to ask you now. Is there a reason to be concerned that we'll be over inundated with social media, emails, Twitter, all of it, that you just don't have time to look at this stuff?
I think people
It's
are
already
like
happened
that
with
even
emails.
now.
Yeah, with
I
emails,
think
it's
even
clearly
now
happened.
with Twitter, you
Yeah.
scroll, right? And so you do miss a lot of information. That's just why I think it's important that we go to the experimental side of this research and find out, does Twitter have a real impact? If you're scrolling and you see these posts, are you more likely to volunteer? Are you more likely to donate? Are you more likely to vote?
Or do you have a full-time job where you're actually supposed to be working and not playing on the internet?
Somebody believes in it, and the leader of your party believes in it because he just named his digital guru as the campaign chairman for 2020, and he was given, Trump, a pivotal role along with Kushner in the 2016 campaign. He is now the chairman of the Trump for presidency campaign in 2020. So I think the saturation of Twitter will remain, as well as other platforms.
The benefit of social media, as opposed to traditional hard media, which is you can't change who sends you mail. You can't change who puts what lawn signs you see. You can't change who's advertising on the radio. But when it comes to social media, even Heather, you mentioned how people can block whoever they choose. But if you flip that on its head, you're actually curating your content. You can say, I respect this voice. I respect this source of information. I want to see those when I scroll through Twitter. And so, yeah, you're going to be scrolling through, but at the same time, you're looking at information that you yourself have carefully curated to meet your needs and to fulfill what information you're looking for.
How would you guys both decide for us whether or not the Twitter usage of your allies, your candidates, are either based on issues or on condemning the other side?
I think it's a mix. But for us at the party, it's all about solutions oriented. Trump is, and I hate to admit this, is helping our side out. So we let him do what he has to do. So now candidates in the party, what we need to do is being solutions oriented, get our message out. This is the alternative in 2018 to being effective, to restoring government in a positive way and helping people, fighting to make lives better. So
do you think guns is now the third rail of American politics?
I do not. I don't think it's the third rail of American politics. I think that we need to elect people who believe in sensible gun control reform and put them in office and get it done. I do not think it's a third rail. I think that you can win an election, or you can have a campaign on gun reform. I truly believe that.
Well, good. Well, I look forward to your candidate for governor campaigning to take away everybody's guns.
Well, it
in
depends
Texas.
on where they're running, right? I mean, if you're
Your guys are in ascendancy. I don't think you could pass that in Harris County.
well, if you look at a place like Florida right now, I
don't think.
I think there's a lot of Republicans
You know what's
sweating.
interesting? You know what's interesting about all this? And I was going to ask you also about this: bots. You know, these internet campaigns against the NRA, they're basically generated by computers, is amazing. And you're going to see the results of how this plays. That the NRA gets blamed for a mentally ill guy who the police were warned about 40 times and didn't do anything about. Right. That the NRA is blamed because the police officers stay out of the building because of their rules of engagement in Broward County, by the way, led by a left-wing sheriff. It tells you a lot about what's going wrong in the country. I mean, if you guys want to run on that issue, I'm saying go for it.
But I'm sorry, but you know what's very interesting though is that the cops get blamed now for not taking charge when this man went into the thing.
Oh,
but the cops
absolutely.
don't get blamed when they shoot an unarmed black kid.
That's
they never
not
get
true,
blamed.
by the way.
Blue
Yeah, but
lives
tell the
matter.
truth. Tell the truth.
We are telling the truth.
No,
it's very
not
interesting
like,
how
not Missouri.
It's
the
very
Missouri case was
interesting.
not a real case.
That's the only
He
one
was-
you know
he
about.
was
That's the
trouble-
only
no,
one. Not
New York.
Tamir
No, the
Rice,
New
not
York guy.
Walter
No,
Scott.
the guy in New
not
York.
Eric Gardner who got
righteous.
choked out.
No, the guy who got
How about
selling
the
cigarettes was
8-year-old?
righteous.
How about the 8-year-old in
But the
Cleveland?
media
Yeah,
doesn't
Tamir
care.
Rice.
But the
Tamir
media
Rice.
didn't care. They made a big deal about the wrong
The fact
one.
is that they were all blamed because they all faced charges. They all went and were charged in criminal court.
A lot of them were
The
not
fact is
indicted.
that
A lot of them were not indicted. So it's
An
really
indictment is
interesting
not the
how
same thing.
Republicans use the cops to shift their narrative. When we
No.
talk about different things,
Oh, you have
we blame the cops here, but we don't blame the
so
cops
it's the
there.
NRA's fault that a crazy guy got a gun who the police were warned about and didn't do anything about, and it's their fault he went up and shot up a school. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, the
because
issue
the
is that
school
the
had
NRA
no security, because they didn't lock the door, because the police who's supposed to be on guard is hiding outside. Tell me what the NRA did.
Well, the
'Cause
issue
they're
is
for
that the
people,
NRA keeps-
law-abiding citizens having guns. Oh, that's terrible.
Well, the
that's
NRA
the problem in America.
Law-abiding citizens are going in and shooting up schools.
No, he was was not law-abiding.
That's not true.
Not true.
So the NRA keeps lobbying, keeps giving money to candidates who continually go vote against gun reform, when 90% of your own party believes that we should have universal background check. That's
Actually,
very kind of
you know, it's
interesting.
interesting.
To me.
If the law had been enforced in Florida correctly, the guy wouldn't have had a gun. But of course, they don't do that.
If they had
to the
20,
bots.
21 years
Bots.
age, 21, yeah, bots.
Bots, they're
Back-
used to.
back
They're
to the bots.
They're familiar with bots. 2016 election.
Just on balance with the gun control, the NRA story, there are also bots and conspiracy theories on the other side.
Right,
So
right.
right after the news came out about this shooting, people on chat boards, different bots started pushing the narrative as well that these students were paid actors.
Right.
So we see it on both sides.
Oh, I think that's done. And that's part of the problem of getting your news from only what you believe in.
Right.
And you don't hear anything else. You should be reading what the conservatives are saying. You should be reading what the liberals are saying.
Oh, we read
Because
it
you got to
every
learn
day.
stuff. You do.
Yeah, we do.
You
We're-
do.
we're-
Okay, then you
we're-
guys.
we're on social-
Well, you
I
should
mean,
be
we
telling
read it.
everybody that.
I'm looking at what they're putting out every single day.
Yeah, I mean, we look.
What
at
is
it,
he putting out?
And that's
What is he putting out?
Well, you know, slates, red trash cans everywhere for the college Republicans because they have 3 different slates that they're running, and that's one of the interesting things that we've read at the party is that the different slates that they're running, the young Republicans, excuse me, not college Republicans, have the red trash cans out trashing the different other slates. So it's interesting to read what each other is doing, correct? You know, especially when how can I say internal family matters are made external, and you see things like that.
So, Mr. Davidic, do you have a party or do you have slates as a party, as a substitute for a party?
No, the party is made up of 500 elected precinct chairs who vote based on their own determination of who the best candidates are and who activate their precincts by talking to their neighbors, talking to their constituents, and getting them out to the polls. Harris County Republican Party is not a party of dictation of who people should vote for. We activate individuals to make their own choices.
Empower people to make their own decisions.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about who corrects the lies, and I'm going to brag on somebody here because
Who
there are.
defines what a lie
Well,
is, David?
I'm about to tell you one that was a lie.
Oh, you're the guy who will tell
No,
us.
John Cornyn identified who lied about the Border Patrol, 2 Border Patrol agents who were immediately seized upon by Cruz and Abbott as having been the victims of MS-13. And then the sheriff reported that they'd actually fallen and that was their injury. And Cornyn went out on a limb and said, you know, we need to think these things through before we open our mouth.
Did you do that on social media?
He did.
Well,
Okay.
let's be honest. I mean, the report that emerged eventually came out a month or 2 months after the fact. So initially, it's reasonable for people to conclude that the violence was visited upon this particular officer because that has been the case in the past in that particular area. So it's reasonable for someone to assume that the case.
And this is where I disagree because that's exactly what led to Trayvon Martin being killed. It's reasonable to assume that a young black man who's wearing a hoodie is up to no good. We cannot continually do things
could
like
have a
this.
show on that
We
one.
cannot
I have to
continually,
disagree with that.
and that's fine. I mean, we're gonna agree with this girl on most things, but you can't continually do this. I mean, this is what is getting us in trouble a lot of the times. We talk about facts and correcting it. It's just like a tweet that the Harris County Republican Party sent out about how Sheila did this and Obama
Sheila
did
who?
this. Congresswoman Shirley Jackson Lee, excuse me,
Okay.
did this, and the economy was failed under Barack Obama. But when you looked at it from the government's own statistics, job growth was growing exponentially. Well,
not as good
it
as
slowed down in 2017, and we had to correct that. I mean, we had to go on Twitter, correct that, and quote that, and make sure that we were being respectful to the Congresswoman
Final
and President Obama as
Final
well.
question.
You got
I
2
got
minutes. You got
final
plenty of time.
question. No, yes, back to you, Professor. Censorship in the internet. Okay, Prager University. Dennis Prager is a nationally known radio host. He has a university where they post information. They put out videos, educational videos, and they're getting censored. You know, like the origins of World War II. I mean, all this crazy stuff about the Holocaust. And they have a list of things they're not letting. YouTube and Google says you cannot put on the air. Are we giving too much power to the social media companies that's going to be the new censor for politically correct thought, according to them, which
You should
could
hope so,
affect,
Gary.
which
You
could
should hope
affect
so.
either side?
You should hope so because incidents of anti-Semitism have been up 57% since
Good, but that
2017.
wasn't my question, David. Thanks for that statistic.
I mean, I hope that we're not going into this censorship mode on social media. I hope that eventually, I'm trying to teach students how to be good consumers of social media. and check out when they get a tweet, when they see a post on Facebook, check it out for facts, right? Find the facts. When your grandma sends you something online, is it real? Is it not? That's where I want us to go, not in terms of censoring what's out there, but teaching people how to be better consumers of social media.
So you're saying Google, YouTube, they should not be censoring things.
Yeah, in my opinion.
At least the stuff that you would consider within the bounds of political debate in America today. I'm not talking about Nazis reinventing the Nazi Party in America. It's just crazy.
These platforms are endangering their own existence by taking these steps, and they're minimizing the effect that they're going to have on their audience because people are going to choose other means to find the information they need. The fact is, if you alienate part of your audience by choosing to censor one view or another because it disagrees with how you view the world, you're choosing sides.
Yeah, but there's a distinction between hate speech
and things like that. But also too, I do agree in a sense, because if the Republican Party can say something and it not get censored, that means we can prove them wrong. So that's where I love the fact that, you know what, let's do believe in the First Amendment, because if you can say it, then that means we can retort back and have an opposite view.
The marketplace of ideas.
Right.
Excellent ending to the show. Davidjuk, thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Evans, and I'm not even going to go there. Otis, thanks for being here. And we'll see you next week on Red, White, and Blue.